All right, it's finally here. The biggest race of the year, the biggest weekend for a lot of horse players. Kentucky Derby Saturday, Kentucky Oaks Friday. I'm Dan Tordjman with America's Best Racing, joined as always by Christina Blacker from TVG, and reuniting with our old friend, the NHC champion, Scott Coles, for a special Kentucky Derby preview using Stats Race Lens, the most powerful tool in handicapping. Look, this is a little bit different this year, but certainly better than it was last year when we had a Derby later in the year. We had a postponement. So now we get another Derby, and we get a full field as of this recording. We have a heavy favorite, and I think at least some opportunities to make some money on both Friday and Saturday. Christina, we'll dive into the Oaks, the Derby, and we'll get a bonus race from you. Where do you think we're going to find the best opportunity to make a big score this weekend?
That's a good question, Dan. I think that there is probably a little more opportunity in terms of the Oaks to find a price that wouldn't shock me. I think those fillies are pretty evenly matched, a lot of them. As far as the Derby goes, I think there's a group of 5 or 6 horses that really wouldn't surprise me at all. I think Essential Quality is going to be the favorite, but I think you'll get some consistent money for several others in there. Year in, year out, though, I mean, the Derby is a race for value. You want to look for a price. You want to try to play the exactas, trifectas, superfectas. There's always one of those bomb horses that happens to hit the board. So if you have the right combination, you'll go home with a good amount of money in your account.
So Christina exuding confidence. She's got the coast is clear background behind her, putting out good vibes today. Scott, I remember when I first met you at the NHC, when you won, you told me that Stats Race Lens was a big tool for you. You used it to win the NHC along with other tools. How do you use Stats Race Lens specifically to find winners and to find value on a weekend like this one?
I think the more you watch races and the more you get familiar with the software, your mind runs wild. And the best part about Stats for me is that anything your mind can think of, just about, there's an angle in there if you're willing to do the work. There's just so many things you can save and so many different ways you can look at races, and you can not have to guess any longer about those angles that you heard from your great uncle, or that angle that you know all of your friends are yelling at you about. You can show them the actual numbers. Is it a real angle that works, or is it not? You can filter it for all different time periods and just different tracks, jockeys, trainers. There's so many ways that you can use it. And if just something pops in your head, you back test it, see if it's real. If it's not, then you move on. If it is real, then you can kind of play different things off it and continue to tweak it, and it'll pop up for you. And when there's a lot of races in one day, or if there's a tournament where you're playing multiple tracks, I mean, it just saves so much time by being able to see the green and the red pop up next to your horse, positive, negative angles, and they're so valuable on for tournament play and for cash play and big days. You only need to be right once or twice to make a lot of money if you play it right. So it's a huge tool that everybody should be using.
Have you run the angle on the horse winking at you in the paddock that my uncle told me about? Is that an effective angle to use?
You know what? It didn't work. It's but you can...
All right, we'll take another shot. And what you just described there with the green lighting up and customizing searches, we're going to get into all that here in the next hour or so as we go through, as I said, the Oaks, the Derby, and then we each have a bonus race. If you like what you see over the next hour, we're going to tell you now. We'll tell you at the end of the show as well. You could go to equibase.com/offers. There are going to be 3 offers there that you can find that are special for this weekend specifically. For new customers only, if you've never tried Stats Race Lens, this is the time to jump in. You could try it for a month for only $1 using promo code SRLM1E. SRLM1E for $1. You could try Stats Race Lens. Also open to everyone, 50% off an unlimited quarterly subscription. Use promo code Derby Trail 2021. That's easy to remember. Derby Trail 2021, all one word. 50% off a quarterly subscription. And then finally, another offer open to everyone, 25% all of Equibase or Trackmaster Pass Performance subscriptions. Derby 25 is your promo code there. Derby 25 for 25% off the PPs. Before we get to the first Saturday in May, let's start with the last Friday in April and the Kentucky Oaks, the best 3-year-old fillies in the country. If you were watching us here on Stats Race Lens for Kentucky Oaks 2020, She Dares the Devil was a horse that we had talked about, we liked, and of course she pulled off the long shot victory. Can we do it again? Can Brad Cox do it again this year? He's won 2 of the last 3 Kentucky Oaks. He's got 2 shots in this year's race with long shot coach and co-second choice travel column. Your favorite's probably going to be Shadwell's Beast Malathat, the 10 horse, undefeated in 4 races for Todd Pletcher. Christina, we did have 1 scratch in this race come through, the 7 Ava's Grace. I thought that one figured to be the controlling pace setter. So questions now, who goes to the lead and how do you see this race setting up?
Yeah, Ava's Grace, she might have been a little bit of a question mark in terms of class and maybe what her ability was going to be, kind of in the late stages of the race, but was definitely the speed. And so it does change the complexion of it. I think it moves Travel Column up a little bit. Travel Column is drawn just to her inside, has some tactical speed. So does Pass the Champagne. Those 3 were actually drawn right alongside each other, the 5, 6, and 7. So with Ava's Grace out, a little bit of the pace comes out of the race, but my selection did not change. I like the 12 Certain Results here. This is the daughter of Flatter. She is undefeated in 3 career starts so far. You can see here looking at her form, she broke her maiden first time out by 4 lengths at Gulfstream. That was sprinting. Chad Brown gave her a little bit of time, and I just really noticed the way he campaigns his horses these days. I think he really follows patterns. I think he follows speed figure patterns and wanting horses to kind of recover from some of their big races. Her most recent race was the Gazelle. And so let's take a look at that now. There's a couple of points that I take away from this race that I think bode really well for her. First of all, this race at the 1.125 distance. So here we are in the gate. We can actually fast forward it because she sits a pretty good trip. She sits a very tactical trip. She's just to the outside. And what I really like about her is the fact that she was just in hand going down the backstretch. She was really in the bridle, I think capable of going quicker if she wanted to. They went pretty slow up front, but she took the lead in such commanding fashion as you saw there. She took over as they turned for home. She does kind of jump leads a little bit. I think she looks a little green still, a little lost out there on her own, but as soon as she felt the presence of Maracuja to her outside, she kind of kicked it in again. So I really like the development with this filly. She's lightly raced, but I like the fact that she seems like she's improving right now. And I also like that she has enough tactical speed not to lose contact with the rest of the field. I have a couple stats that we're going to take a look at. The first one is just Chad Brown, her trainer. And I was mentioning kind of those patterns and the way that he campaigns his horses. So you look at her for kind of the spring, summer, or spring into this kind of portion of the year. She has the Busher on March the 6th. She has a month until the Gazelle on April the 3rd. Now here we are, 3rd off the layoff. This is a strong percentage for Chad Brown. A lot of angles are with him. He's 23%, 3rd off the break. And this is a very big stat. We're talking about 67 winners from 291 horses. And then the other one that I clicked just out of curiosity was along the left-hand side there to filter to her dam. You just click that and realize that this dam, Coca-Cola is her name. She herself, a daughter of Candy Ride. She's really produced some horses with some stamina. She has 36% dirt route winners herself. And so you combine that with the fact that Flatter can definitely get you a horse going distance of ground. This dam being very productive in general. Chad Brown getting the win at the 1.125 with her already. She's going to be my top pick. The other horse that I wanted to talk about real quickly, Dan, is the 4 Crazy Beautiful. I wanted to make her my top pick so badly. I love this filly. She could not look any better. Of all of the horses in this race that have been training this week at Churchill Downs, and I've been up at the crack of dawn to watch that show every day because I love it that much. She looks the best. And so Kenny McPeak said that early in her career, she was kind of striking herself in her stride, meaning she's kind of nicking and clipping at her own legs with her hooves. It's a very minor thing, but it's something that will keep a horse from reaching their full potential. With time, that has been corrected. And when she ran second in the Devona Dale, he said she was about 80%. I was there that day. She came back in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. She was a dominant winner by 2.5 lengths. I think she is really thriving right now. She loves Churchill Downs. You can see right there on her form. She was second in the Pocahontas to Girl Daddy. She has nice works in the morning coming into this race, but I just think she's going to be too far back, Dan. So that's why I couldn't make her the top pick. I really would love to lean her way, go with the price, but I think she's going to come storming down the middle of the racetrack and probably get a piece of it. So I will keep Search Results as the top selection.
Yeah, she really runs Crazy Beautiful, runs an honest race every single time. You watch those replays and you can make an excuse for every race that she didn't win. Scott, I know you liked at least one of Christina's picks here, the 12 horse here, because I'm assuming some of the same reasons, Search Results. How are you attacking this race, Search Results and beyond?
So I think the scratch that we talked about earlier of Ava's Grace cleared up the picture quite a bit, because trying to decide between all the great closers in this race was driving me nuts. When you have lightly raced horses, so many of them like Crazy Beautiful and others that have finished very well, with that hot of a pace that it was setting up to be, if someone took Ava's Grace on, or Pratt might go with the 8, I was thankful for that, trying to figure that out. So everyone is still, all the buzz at least still seems to be at this race is wide open. And in situations like that, if I like one or two of the favorites, I like to get skinny in spots like that and just say that, well, if everyone else is going to look for value, I'm going to take the chalk, and you're going to get a lot more value on big days like this, on chalkier picks, because just everything's over inflated and you have so much dead money coming to pools with celebrities and people liking names and funny hats, and there's all sorts of nonsense going on days like this.
Watch out.
No, I love your hat. So you've got Search Results, which I agree with everything you said. We probably don't have to watch the replay again. I mean, it just looked like a comfortable trip, only the third career start. I mean, Irad's gonna be able to work out even a little bit of a better trip now. I wouldn't be shocked if she's on the lead. If not, she has enough speed to sit very close. It's kind of paired up. If you go into if you look there, the highest last Equibase speed figure is kind of an old handicap and angle. One of the first ones I ever learned was kind of when younger horses pair up figures like that. You see the 101 and the 103, 3 wins. I mean, that is an angle that kind of screams that the horse is going to keep moving forward when they paired up figures and paired up patterns. And I mean, Irad and Chad, they kind of speak for themselves. You got room to improve, and if you look at the pace projector on the Truett section, which is one of the great parts about stats, we know, and you actually alerted to us this morning, that Ava's Grace is not going to be in this race. So if you go on the left, one of the cool things about it is that you can click the little eye next to Ava's Grace's name all the way on the far left column under the view options, and you can take Ava's Grace off the pace projector. Just another cool tool, so you can get a better picture in your head of how it's going to look without a horse that is not going to be in before the horse is actually scratched. Sometimes that happens with multiple. Sometimes, there's all sorts of scenarios where that can be helpful. It's just another cool thing about stats. If you sort by late pace, you'll see that, I mean, top 3 in late pace possibly has the most early speed if you want to, but drawn outside of other horses that may or may not go. And Irad's going to be able to see it all develop in front of him with a horse and she's going to be improving by Chad Brown. I mean, there's just so many reasons to like this horse. And I guess the next one I would talk about would be, if you go back to the PPs, is the 6 Travel Column. So who I also agree could also be on the lead or be very close. These two being able to run so close to the pace, I think is a huge advantage now that Ava's Grace is gone, because this could end up being a fairly slow pace. I mean, you could make an argument for the 8 to dead send, just because the class might be lacking just a little bit there. But these two both have good trainers, good jockeys, and they're just gonna be able to get the spots they want without a crazy hot contested pace, because they know that they can either put themselves on the lead or just sit right off it, but they don't have to get the horse caught up in some kind of crazy duel. And you don't have to worry about Ava's Grace, who I thought had a chance to get real loose. I mean, that could have got scary for them. I mean, if Ava's Grace got too far away, I mean, there wasn't anybody else that was sure to go. So I mean, that just takes one factor out of it. And then just talking about the year Brad Cox has had in the last few years, actually. But there's a stat about Brad Cox, and you can play with it more in the actual research angles, but just to kind of get a quick glimpse of it. 43% win, 71% of the money in the last year, and it's actually even higher than that if you factor in certain distances and tracks. But you can play with that on your own. But just to get an idea, he has just been an absolute machine. I mean, if you toss him 70 to 80% in the money in grade 1 stakes on the dirt recently, it's just insane. He's got another horse in here, Coach. I mean, wouldn't be surprised if that horse picks up a piece late, just because he's been that good at getting every single horse to run in these big days in the dirt. Search results I prefer visually from what I've seen so far, and I think has more room to improve, but a travel column will have a lot to say about it. And the other one I liked a little bit was Malafat, which I know that you're going to talk about, so I'll save that for you.
All right. Before I move on, I did want to ask both of you, since you both liked search results, did either of you give a chance to a long shot here in Maracuya, who's who picked up, I guess, a slice of that that prior race, which of course I'm not blanking on, the Gazelle. Did either of you like Maracuya, Christina?
I think, to be fair to her, I mean, it was her first attempt around 2 turns, and if you're progressing from 3 sprint races to the 1 1/8, that's a big ask. But I thought that search results beat her pretty handily. Maracuja might come and make that run, but of the other closers in here, I thought there were some other horses with a little bit more on their resumes, a little more proven, that could pick up the pieces. But I'll give it to her. That was a big ask, and she really answered the question, showing a lot of class.
Anything to add, Scott? Any shot for that one, picking up a piece maybe?
So I considered a lot more again when I thought the pace was going to be hotter. Took a huge jump in figures, which is good and bad. Bad because sometimes you can see a little regression in the situation. Good because it was the first attempt at anything other than a sprint. So maybe she's found what she wants to do. And if you listen to the In the Money Media Network, Jonathan Kinchin actually interviewed Kendrick Carmouche, and he said, don't sleep on this one. But Kendrick's such an upbeat guy, and he's going to say that about any of his horses. So I don't know what to say there, but he's awesome. He's really excited about it. And you never know, but I agree with Christina. I think there are other closers that are better if the pace for some reason is really hot. So it's tough.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the pace. We've got travel column up right now. I think understanding also certain jockey tendencies. We've seen Florent Giroux over the past few years, time and time again, even when it didn't seem like he had the fastest horse in the race, hustle a horse out of a gate and get to the front. Given where she's drawn here, travel column, I got to figure that's the plan, and maybe take some token pressure to her outside from either search results or, maybe one of these others, maybe like, Miraz or something shows a little bit of speed. But I got to believe travel column's going to be on the lead and might be loose on the lead, which I think makes her extremely dangerous. And that does leave a couple of horses who are pace dependent a bit compromised. One of the horses that I think is not pace compromised, because I think she could win from just about anywhere at this point after seeing what she did in the Ashland, was the 10 horse Malathat. I mean, there's really not much more you could say about this horse. She's 4 for 4, turning for home in the short stretch there in the Ashland, past the Champagne, looked absolutely clear. And Malathat just gobbled up a ton of ground late. And she did a similar thing actually in the Demoiselle last year, where it looked like she was just running in place for a while. But as soon as they hit that last 16th of a mile, I mean, that curl and pedigree, it just moves her up, and she's going at a rate that's faster than all the other horses. And so I think for those reasons that are pretty straightforward, Todd Pletcher has been exuding a ton of confidence over the past couple of weeks, saying, and he's not someone, as opposed to Kendrick. I mean, Todd is super measured, and he's been, beaming, talking about Malathat. So I think you've got to respect her, because she has the ability to stay close. She's actually won in wire-to-wire fashion earlier in her career, but we've also seen her do it recently without a ton of pace in front of her, and she still gets up because she's just moving so well late. So I think she's an obvious horse to use on your tickets. If I'm going to give you one that's going to be a bit of a price and maybe gets a bit overlooked, it'll be Clariere, and I'll go over a couple of reasons. We talked about the Fairground Oaks and Travel Column winning. That was a bit of an odd race, and I kind of wanted to take a look at it quickly if we could. We go to about the 115 mark, and the horse we're looking for is Clariere. You'll see once we get there, they're just about to make the turn for home. Oh, nicely done there, right at 115. Clariere is the 6, and she's there in the yellow silks, making the move out wide. I want you to kind of take a look at some of the bumping here that kind of down her momentum. You can see a horse who are inside right now coming out a little bit. It's slowing down, but right there was a bump with the 4. I think that horse was a little tootsie. And then you see there's another one. And then, okay, now maybe Clariere can just run straight. Nope, here's another horse coming out into her path. So 2 horses come out into her path, slow her down, I think, significantly, and then keep this video up. First of all, running on the left lead there, just all sorts of green and awkward. And then watch this gallop out here. Just watch Clariere fly by. Oh yeah, there's your winner. Bye, Clariere. We'll see you. We'll see you at the barn. Clariere, I think, is going to run all day. If you go back to the PPs, one thing that I also like here, and look, I love Joe Talamo. I'm a big fan for years, but you're moving from Talamo to Tyler Gaffleone, who's not only a really good jockey, but is good at Churchill Downs as well. So you're getting a bit of an upgrade, I think, there, especially locally to Tyler. And I mentioned the pedigree. I think the only other thing I would add is if we look at some of the pedigree research and some of the searches you can do using Stats Race Lens, I customized a search here that was very specific and wanting to see, even though I knew the Curlin numbers would be great, 3-year-old runners on the dirt, using a precise distance of 8.5 to 9.5 furlongs, graded stakes races specifically. And you see the numbers there through the roof, 23%. So, look, there's not much to be concerned about. And I mean, this one is also out of cavorting, who we may remember as a multiple grade 1 winner. And so, I'm just extremely confident in Clariere running a big race. Her only poor effort was that Fairground Oaks, at least on paper, but I think we've just seen why that was not such a bad effort. And then 2 back, obviously she beat Travel Column in the Rachel Alexandra. Also wanted to note that the Rachel Alexandra has actually produced 9 of the last 24 Kentucky Oaks winners. So take that for what it's worth. Maybe just a little cherry on top to the case that I made. Let's see, is there anyone else we're overlooking here before we move on to the Derby? Milfoy is one who I liked a little bit, but drew wide. She finished second to Crazy Beautiful in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. Any interest in Milfoy here, either Christina or Scott?
I thought she ran an improved race in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. I think she's a little bit quirky. I think she wants everything kind of her own way, or she doesn't really give 100%. But I did think that was a step forward for her last out. And to your point about the Curlin pedigree, I think she's going to continue to get better. I mean, she looks the picture out there. She's very classy, homebred for Juddmonte. But I thought Crazy Beautiful really did have her measure and ran her down pretty easily last time. So if they both keep taking that step forward, I'm still going to lean towards Crazy Beautiful. But I know Bill Mott's had a high opinion of her all along.
Mm-hmm. Scott, let me throw one other one at you. Pauline's Pearl beat Ava's Grace, actually, and Coach last out in the fantasy. Installed, at 20 to 1 in the morning line. I thought that was kind of high. What do you think of Pauline's Pearl?
Yeah, this morning line, it was confusing to me the whole time. The 50 to 1 on Ava's Grace was also kind of shocking. So the horse keeps getting better. The reason I didn't really use, I'm a little concerned about how far back the horse might be, and it won't be crazy far back. If it's a slow pace, they'll be kind of packed together. But when you're trying to pass a couple of the 3 top horses, in my opinion, all going to be that close and just have that jump on you. And if no one's working that hard early, it's just a dash late. and it might string out a little bit more and you could save ground. But I mean, the connections, I mean, Asmussen and Santana, I mean, that's a ridiculous combo to see up there at 20-1 for a horse that just won last race. It's just, I just don't know what to do. So I am hoping that I'm correct and it'll be a slower pace and it'll be tougher on the closers. But I mean, it wouldn't shock me by any means. I mean, those connections are too good. If you like the horse, then I mean, I'm not going to talk you out of it.
I had to learn about the distance with her a little bit, Dan. I know she's a daughter of Taffet, but Hop Dixie Chick was very fast, all one turn. The siblings are all one turn. I know she's gone a mile and a 16th so far, but I thought even in the fantasy, she wasn't blowing by anybody. You know, it was kind of measured wins. So I think where some of the others look like they really want to continue or they're already proven at the mile and eighth, I wonder if that last 16th will catch up with her.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you know, click on that video icon every time when you're at home using Stats Raceland. Watch those replays as time affords, as you're allowed, as you know, as you can. I mean, you know, I know it's not practical to watch every single replay, but if you watch what Christina just referenced, yeah, Pauline's Pearl was working pretty hard to get by Ava's Grace, who went pretty fast early and who you'd hope she would have maybe gone by a little easier. And you know, so given the great setup, and that was her breakthrough win. You know, maybe this is not the optimal distance, adding a little more ground here. All right, look, I think we've got a good sense for who we're all on. And for anyone watching this, I'm sure they're eager to hear how we're going to approach the Kentucky Derby. So let's move to Saturday and the big one on Saturday. And, you know, I guess we should start with the favorite and the horse who's a clear-cut favorite. I can't remember if in recent years, well, I guess Justify would have been the last one, where it was such a storyline of this horse and then everyone else. And you might disagree with me. You might say, look, Rock Your World is in that conversation right up there with Essential Quality, but Essential Quality is the one that is obviously getting most of the buzz, and deservedly so. 5 for 5 coming off a win in the Bluegrass Stakes. So Christina, let's start there. And, you know, an easy question to start with is Essential Quality winning, or is there someone here who you're confident can beat him?
I'm going to take a real strong stance against Essential Quality.
Okay.
I respect him. He's 5 for 5. He's the champ. Brad Cox trains him, but I think he left it on the table in Kentucky at Keeneland in the Bluegrass. I think that race was too tough on him and on Highly Motivated. And I did not like his work at all this week at Churchill. I mean, he just didn't gallop out, didn't look really fresh anymore. I think he just is a little bit over the top right now. I think Mandaloon's going to finish in front of him. I love Mandaloon.
Whoa, fire takes.
Phenomenal. And even though he absolutely bombed in his final prep, which is not what you want to see, I think he looks better right now. I think he looks like he's thriving right now. I like Rock Your World just to his outside. I'll give you my top pick, and then I want to talk about a couple other horses real quickly. Rock Your World, we know he's undefeated. He began on the turf in his first couple starts, and so when he debuted, and I don't know if I've talked about this on one of our webinars before, but I've talked about it on TVG. He made a fool out of me because I watched his works in the morning and I said, this horse is all class, but he needs to go long to be successful. And then he won at 6 furlongs first time out and looked like a beast. And then he came back at a mile on the turf and looked like a beast. And so I finally got on board and supported him doing anything he possibly, could have thrown at him last time out in the Santa Anita Derby. And I'm not going to jump off the bandwagon now. One of the stats angles that I actually have to thank Ellis Starr for, he pointed this out on one of our last webinars, was with regard to Candy Ride offspring in grade 1 dirt route stakes. I mean, this is remarkably high, to the point that I've actually had the farms calling asking, hey, can you send us that stat? Because we want to include it in his commercial.
Oh, wow.
With dirt route grade 1 stakes runners, 14 for 57, 56% in the money. I think we all knew that Candy Ride was a very versatile stallion, but to see that I think is pretty remarkable. And then the other thing I want to point out is to open up the PPs for his Damn Charm the Maker. So I remember her when she was running out here on the West Coast. And for the most part, she has produced a lot of turf horses, but she herself was racing in the era of synthetic. And so as you kind of just, you can scroll up and down through her past performances and see that she had a lot of class about her. She only won 3 times. Those races were on the synthetic. She did have the opportunity to compete on the dirt here and there. But I think if we were in a time and place where she could have been on the dirt, you might have not had this conversation about him being bred top and bottom for turf. I think that there's a lot more versatility to this pedigree than people are giving him credit for. And I think this horse is just an absolute, he's so classy. He's so talented. He keeps getting better and better. So he's going to be my top pick. I know Scott likes him as well, so I'll leave the replay to him. I did want to go back to the PPs and just talk about 2 other horses really quickly. So Known Agenda, who drew the rail, it's not ideal, but it's not the same as it was in years past where we had the 2 starting gates. Now we have 1 straight starting gate, and the way that they position it, it's not as terrible to have to draw the rail. It does mean, because of his lack of early speed, that he's going to get shuffled back a little bit. But I went back to watch the Florida Derby this morning, and I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by how tactical Known Agenda was. He's not going to completely shut out the back. He's going to protect that rail. He has an aggressive rider in Irad Ortiz. Let's go to the True Odds page, because I think what I found really interesting on the True Odds page was to filter this for late pace. I always look at the late pace numbers, but he's pretty strong on that late pace figure as compared to the rest of this field. I think that makes a big difference when you have a horse that you know he's going to kind of make his own trip. He has a couple different maneuvers if he needs to. And then what I also really love about him is when he finally does kind of get his eyes on a target. And I was there at Gulfstream Park watching him in the Florida Derby. He lowers his belly about 5 feet to start reaching with his strides. I mean, this horse, once he has his eye on another one, is going to give 200% to try and go past them. And I have a little sentimental with regard to his dam by Rama. I want to open her PPs. Let's go back to the past performances. Go to Bayrama and just click her past performances. She was the first horse that Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners ever purchased. I was working for Aaron Wellman at the time. I remember sitting in the office and watching her replays from England when they brought her over. And our nickname for her was Nails. She was tough as nails. She would do anything. She went on the dirt, she went on the turf, she went on synthetic. She was tiny, but she would just attack the ground. And he has that same kind of knee action that she did, and just that tenacity. So I really love Known Agenda, but again, because he's going to be so far back and because he might get shuffled around a little bit, I couldn't make him the top pick. It was the same kind of scenario as Crazy Beautiful in the Oaks. I needed a horse that's a little more tactical, because I think that's where the Derby winners are coming from these days. And that's why I ended up on Rock Your World. And then the last quick point back to the PPs, Dynamic One is going to be my long shot play. I think Todd Pletcher has always had a lot of confidence and real high hopes for this horse. I know Bourbonic beat him last out, but he was to the outside in the Wood Memorial. He was wide the whole way around, and he was wide off a slow pace. He already went 1.25 miles, and he got beat like this for it. And he's been training really well. It actually gave him one of the best works of all the horses there this week. So I think Dynamic One gets a piece of it, and I think you'll get every bit of that 20-1 on him.
Yeah, for the trip handicappers out there, I encourage you to go back and watch that replay as well. It's one of those things where if Bourbonic is not in that race, Dynamic One probably comes in as a buzz horse, because he wins the race by however many lengths he was ahead of the next horse. Scott, as Christina sort of teased a little bit, you're on Rock Your World as well. Tell us why.
Never thought I would be on a horse that's raced once on dirt in the Kentucky Derby, but here we are in 2021. I can't. Every time I watch that replay, it's incredible. I thought the turf replays were incredible. I had this horse down after the second race of his career as my winner for the American turf. Thought that's where we were going, but then we find out that he might be the best dirt horse too. So maybe he'll run both. So I loved seeing the Candy Ride stats. That was great. I wouldn't mind watching the replay because of the last race, because you can take it to the stretch. I mean, you can show the beginning a little bit.
Scott, let's do this. I would actually say let's play this race out and keep an eye on Rock Your World, who's the 3-horse. And I also want to kind of point out, take a look at Medina Spirit, because this is a horse that I'm going to reference here in a few moments. Medina Spirit was the 7 in this race, right? Yeah, Medina Spirit's the 7 and Rock Your World. I mean, these are 2 horses coming back. You keep an eye on both of them, because look, when we talk about the pace of this race, we're going to have to have an honest conversation about who's actually going to be on the lead in the Derby.
Absolutely. And it was, so you can see that Parnelli tried to sneak, the 4 kind of tried to sneak in between them. I thought Medina Spirit was for sure going to the lead, and then Rock Your World's cruising speed just happened to be faster than all of them once Medina Spirit decided to kind of back off. And I don't know if that was because Parnelli got between them, if those were the instructions, if they're trying to save something for the Derby. And it was kind of puzzling, but that cruising speed on Rock Your World, and to finish like he did, and it didn't take anything out of him, gets the position. I mean, there's a lot of people saying that he had a really easy lead. Parnelli was there the whole time. I mean, it wasn't easy. The horse wasn't loose. I mean, it was easier because got rail position right away and was able to kind of just cruise by, kind of just lets him come get a little close here. And then once they let it out a notch, I mean, this was ridiculous. The horse pulls away. Now, is anything about what's happening right now tough? No, other than the fact that the horse, I mean, went faster than all the other preps significantly to the half and is still finishing like an absolute freight train. And you'll even see after the wire, I mean, Medina Spirit is trying pretty hard here. I'm not sure if this was an all-in race or if they were pretty confident that they didn't need this. But I mean, you'll see.
Spoiler, I'm going to take that position in a moment.
Yeah. But this gallop out, even, I mean, talk about see you later. I mean, where's Medina Spirit after the end of this gallop out? I mean, Rock Your World is just so far down. That is insane. That is insane. That is a horse that, I mean, looked like he could have won 2 miles that day. I mean, just is ridiculous. And there are so many issues with a horse that's only ran once on dirt. I mean, you could see improvement here, and I could see the horse winning by open legs, because I don't think this is a very good field. But you could also see problems that come up, when you see a different pace scenario, you don't get the lead. I mean, he showed on turf that he can sit, relax, and pass horses. He's still a little bit green, but I mean, he's only raced 3 times. It's kind of crazy that we're even having this conversation. This is going to be a lot of people's pick. I don't know. We'll see how much money comes in. How 5-1 would really excite me. I don't know that that's going to happen, but there's also going to be enough people that are saying that there's no way that this horse can win. So we'll see what the tug of war looks like on the odds board for this. And there's always just random things that happen. I mean, $6 million came in on My Boy Jack that one year for no good reason. I mean, Patch was like breaking records because people liked his story. I mean, it's insane. So you're going to get value. I just don't know how much, but with a clear favorite in essential quality and some of the concerns that Christina brought up, I mean, you could get a decent price. And for a horse that I think has all the talent in the world, would be such a cool horse to own, because you have every option you could possibly want with this horse. It's already shown in 3 starts that you can pretty much do it whatever you want. And it's just every time I watch the replay, it's insane.
Well, a lot of people obviously, didn't really like, and it was kind of unfortunate that Umberto Rispoli got, taken off, and Joel Rosario's the jockey. As sad as that was, sort of on a personal level, an individual level for Umberto, I took that as just sort of being a big signal of strength, both from, Joel jumping off of, we could have ridden probably any, 3 or 4 horses in here, including Hot Rod Charlie. And then also from the connection saying, look, we've got something here, and we want to make sure we're going with the sure hand, the experienced hand. Did you read it the same way?
Yeah. And, it's very tough because Rispoli he's been unbelievable, but I mean, only been here for a short amount of time. Rosario, rode the maiden race. It's not like Rosario's never been on this horse. And I don't know what exactly happened in between. That's not really my forte there, is following all that. But Rosario, in my opinion, is the best finisher in the US. I mean, the horse, he gets every horse everything out of the horse is going to the wire. And if this horse has that kind of natural ability and can close like a turf horse, I mean, if this horse puts it all together, I mean, the sky's the limit. We'll see. The lightly raced thing is always an issue, but the huge thing is I think the scratch of Caddo River, I'm not sure exactly how to say it. That was a huge scratch because now the lead is there for the taking. I would assume Medina Spirit's gonna pull more of an authentic trip and try to go rather than just let that happen again. But we'll see. But Rock Your World can stay close and has just with that kind of cruising speed and that kind of the push button ability in the making. I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy. There's an angle that I'm hoping showed up if we click on that I was playing around with, just because I think there's a misconception sometimes in the Derby. If you actually click on the green part, the bigger part, you'll see what comes up. And this is an angle that I built, and this is the coolest part about stats because this is where my mind went. But I was trying to show how being closer to the speed going long at Churchill is an advantage. And so I'll kind of walk through it here. So you can sort by track. You got Churchill, you've got dirt. They don't have an option at this time for 1.25 miles, but greater than 1.1 miles catches all the 1.25 miles and longer, which is what I want to see, because I want to see with the big stretch run along with the 2 turns what this captures. I wanted the run style of early presser because I wanted to show like all the horses that are close to the pace. And I used the true odds of greater than or equal to 5% because there are plenty of horses with this style that are runoffs that don't have any chance. So I wanted this to only bring up horses with legitimate chances. So that kind of filters that out. But if you go even all the way back to, I believe, 5 years, you'll see that in 66 starts, that's only 27 races, because you're obviously going to have multiple horses in every race with this kind of running style, especially in big fields. And this is going to pull in derbies, which makes this even more incredible because that win percentage goes way up. It's over 50%. If you base it just on races, over 50% of these types of races are won by either a presser or an early presser, because there were actually 14 winners. It comes up 21% because they're taking the total out of all 66 starters. But the hitting the board, the win percentage, I mean, everything's there. The success score that's going to light up green for you. But angles like these kind of show where you want to be on Derby Day. And we don't have time to get into all the negative angles, but the closers kind of get overbet in the Derby. It's just a tough race. It's not to say it never happens, but now we have less pace in the race. I mean, it becomes even less likely, kind of like the Oaks. And hopefully I'm right about both those, or I'm just gonna have a horrible day. But this type of angle I think is very useful, and you can play around with it and make it your own, and kind of to get your own spin on it and use it for even other tracks and other days. But it's a good angle to kind of get you started, to show that being forward is an advantage and Rock Your World has options. And I'm just really excited to see what the horse can do. If you go back, we can briefly talk about essential quality. Christina's got me wanting to maybe toss the horse now. I don't know. I have to go back and look. But Derby favorites.
The coast is clear, Scott.
Clear favorites in the Derby have done so well. I mean, obviously, Tis the Law ruined a lot of people's day last year, so there's some recency bias there. But the horse still took second. I mean, there was just chaos in the Derby the year before, so I won't even into that. But then before that, I mean, the betting favorite on the Derby had won going all the way back to Orb I believe I think it was like 6 or 7 straight Derbies that the betting favorite won. And the ones they didn't win, I mean, they're usually in the picture. So it's hard to toss the horse, but I have heard bad things about the works. But you can go back, and now I'm torn because that Brad Cox stat, I mean, he's just been unbelievable, and you can filter it more for longer races on dirt, play around with it. But he's just hitting at an incredible rate. So I'm a little bit torn. Those are the two I like the most. But I mean, Rock Your World in spots that I can single or get really skinny. I mean, I'm going to try to get away with Rock Your World, and I know that we'll talk about more horses at the end, so I'm not going to leave it there. All
right, yeah, we'll go around the room here in a few moments and kind of really go horse by horse and just try to figure out which long shots are viable and who we could make a case for to round out maybe trifectas and superfectas or anything else you might be stabbing at on Saturday. Let me just briefly kind of go through my 2 horses that I'm using on top. The first one's going to be Highly Motivated. We've talked a lot about essential quality, and even though Brad Cox is playing down how hard used he was in the Bluegrass Stakes. He did have to work, Essential Quality did, to get to Highly Motivated. And you look at that race, you got the 108 Equibase speed figure there for Highly Motivated, only Essential Quality in that race with a 109, and Known Agenda with a 112 that posted a higher number. You're looking at a horse running his second race this year, first time at the distance, stretching out, had excuses in the Gotham. If you haven't seen it, go watch the Gotham. You can see that red little marker on the side that says bobbled at the start. It was much worse than that. Not only did he bobble at the start, he literally had to take up before the first turn there, and was in all sorts of trouble, and rallied quite nicely, actually, to finish where he finished, and then took another huge step forward in the Bluegrass. The one thing I really like about it, though, is if you look at the Bluegrass, you see how Highly Motivated was on the lead, right? Look at the prior 4 races. Was he on the lead in those races? No, that's not where he wants to be. He doesn't want to be on the lead. And the fact that he could go to the lead in that race and hold off the horse who everyone is saying is the best 3-year-old in the country, by a neck, and almost beat that horse, I think was impressive. I mean, a change of tactics for a 3-year-old making his second start of the year, and to show that much grit and stamina, not wanting to let the horse go by, I thought was super impressive. So those are just sort of just basic observations, I think, that, watching a couple of replays and considering trajectory, who we have seen the ceiling on so far and who we haven't, I think Highly Motivated still has a lot more to show us. Chad Brown, another guy, and again, like you guys are going to think like I'm just here just doing like nonverbal communication and like breaking down everyone's posture and everything and everything they're doing and saying, but I saw him at the trainers dinner last night. He was like making jokes, like he looked so confident and so comfortable. He's joking with Bob Baffert about stealing his like Derby trophy and all that. I don't know, like there's the only thing I don't like about this horse, honestly, is that no horse has ever won from 17. Again, I'm not going to put too much stock into that, but just like from a superstitious perspective, no horse ever won from 17. But then again, not nearly as many horses have run from 17 as have from 10 or 5 or 1, certainly. So don't get too caught up in that. One other thing to show you, it's a little bit of pedigree research into Mischief. I know a lot of people have really kind of chalked up these into Mischief horses as, mile and an eighth, no more, and leave it at that. I did a search specifically, though, for a distance of a mile and an eighth and beyond being the key word, 3-year-old males in graded stakes. And you see the numbers, and you also see the names. I mean, all those names are horses that you scroll down: Authentic, Chess Chief, obviously Highly Motivated. We talk about Owendale, Practical Joke, Soup and Sin. Now, Practical Joke definitely did have issues with going longer, so I'm not gonna use him as my example. Burned me quite a few times, but I think these into Mischiefs are getting sold short a little bit, and as time has gone on, we've seen that they can get a little more distance than we initially thought. So I'm not too concerned there, and I think this is a horse, as long as he can avoid getting caught out super wide early, because we mentioned. The pace being what it is, you may have a few horses try to semi-send, a few jockeys try to semi-send, and that might lead to a little bit of a stack up on that second flight. And if he does get stacked up and is wide into the first turn, that could certainly hurt his chances. So that would be my top pick. I'm going to go ahead and make a case that's slightly in opposition to specifically what Scott was saying about, Medina Spirit. Or at least, I'm assuming your premise is that Medina Spirit is just not as fast as Rock Your World, if Rock Your World goes. And that might very well be true. When I think about Medina Spirit, let's go to the true odds page for a second. According to true odds, at least, and the race projection, we do see Medina Spirit on the front there. We've also heard Bob Baffert say in the past week or so that they're going to be more aggressive out of the gate. Stopped just short, basically, of saying we were just trying something there. We wanted to see what we could do there. So that was kind of all I needed to hear on that front. Now, if Rock Your World and Joel Rosario want to send and get into a pace, still go for it. But I don't think that's going to happen. And to your point, Scott, you mentioned that Joel Rosario is the best finisher in the game. I agree with you. Whether or not he's a guy that you want on the front end, sitting on a horse that's loose, and whether his clock is as good as some of these other guys, I don't know about that. So I think maybe Rosario wouldn't mind sitting behind a couple of horses here. That's at least how I'm sort of envisioning this race unfolding from a pace perspective. Christina's cracking up on that. I can't wait to get Christina's input on this part. Go ahead, Christina, jump in on this part, and then I'll get to the rest of Medina.
I think that Joel is brilliant off the pace, but I think that he isn't as comfortable on the front end. But I think they would rather have a target for Rock Your World. And so if that target's going to be Medina Spirit, then I think they're fine with that. I also saw an interview with Steve Asmussen saying he wants Midnight Bourbon right out there, as close to the pace as possible. Now, whether or not he actually has the speed to keep up with the other two, with the California horses, I don't know. But I think about Mike Smith and Steve Asmussen and Midnight Bisou and all those races, he would just go and wear them. I think Mike's going to be really aggressive with Midnight Bourbon, and he might be sort of the X factor in the pace scenario that no one's really ready for.
Yeah, I could see him playing spoiler too. It's funny, we're talking about these two as sort of the logicals, but we know that Midnight Bourbon has been on or near the lead every time. And so there's ever a horse you're going to try that with, it'll probably be him. So but let's hop back to the PPs real quick. And, you know, I guess backing up my theory that Medina Spirit might go and could go and is pretty fast is, you know, looking at, if we click on Medina Spirit, the 8 horse, you look at the Robert B. Lewis in particular is a race where, you know, went to the lead. That was the first time, thank God for him, he didn't run up against Life is Good. And he was, you know, obviously just chasing Life is Good around, you know, race after race there. But you look at those splits, you know, 22-4, 46-3, 112. And also, we're not going to watch the replay, but if you watch the replay, he took pressure throughout. And so unlike Rock Your World to certain, now again, we did see Rock Your World take a little bit of early token pressure, but Medina Spirit took a lot more pressure consistently in that race and held on. Not only did he not allow Roman Centurion and Hot Rod Charlie go by, you may not have noticed it because of the spectacular, the way Rock Your World won the Santa Anita Derby. Dream Shake should have gone by Medina Spirit. Medina Spirit was 3 wide all the way around, was going faster. Dream Shake's a nice horse, looked like he was going by, but didn't. In the race prior, the same thing happened with Dream Shake. There has never been a race ever in which Medina Spirit has been passed in the stretch. No horse has ever passed Medina Spirit in the stretch. So I like that. I mean, that's a sign of grit to me. It's a sign of guts. And you've got, again, talking about jockeys who can get to the front and win. You don't have to think too far back to remember Johnny V getting to the front in the Kentucky Derby and wiring a field. So I feel like Baffert's being a little overlooked here, and maybe that's me being hopeful that I'm going to get a better price than I should. Look, if I look up and I see Medina Spirit at like 8-1 on Saturday, I'm not going to be too excited about that. I want something bigger than that. But anyway, I think Medina Spirit could potentially shake loose. And if for any reason Rock Your World gets into a big, and I respect Rock Your World a lot. I think if Rock Your World or Essential Quality get into any sort of trouble at all, I think Medina Spirit could take them a long way up front. I think Rock Your World, wherever he is probably a threat here. So you got to respect that one. Let's go through this field real quick. Let's go up to the top, hit the 1 horse. We'll do Christina. We'll let you start on Known Agenda. What do you think? Tough draw, obviously.
Yeah, tough draw, but as you pointed out, great late pace figure for him. He's taken dirt. He has a couple different moves about him. He is one of the faster horses in the field. If you're looking at those Equibase speed figures, he's definitely a win candidate in my opinion, and should get a piece of it.
Okay, Scott, you think from the 1 hole, Known Agenda still a potential win candidate? I like them a lot too, and I still do like them, but a win candidate for you as well?
Yes. I don't like it. Again, I don't think there's that many horses that could win this race. Probably 6 or 8 in my opinion. And I think Known Agenda is definitely one of them for the late pace reasons and for the fact that Irad down there. I mean, he'll be able to work on the trip. He might have to use a little bit more early than he wanted to, but there's no burners around him. And if they take back like their normal running styles of all the horses immediately outside. He shouldn't get squeezed that badly any more than you would in a 20 horse field, and you get to save ground all the way around. We'll see. I mean, looking at Lee came up the rail a few years back and made a decent trip out of the one.
Yeah.
I mean, in Known Agenda is a much better horse than looking at Lee. So it's not out of the realm possibility, and you're going to get a better price because people are afraid of the one.
All right. Like the King, Christina.
I thought he had a great trip in the Jeff Ruby, whereas some other horses had some trouble. He was able to just storm down the middle. He looked great doing it, but I think class-wise, he's up against it.
All right, Scott, let's do a twofer here. Like the King or Sainthood, both coming out of that Jeff Ruby Stakes.
Much prefer Sainthood, but don't want either of them here. I mean, Sainthood maybe at the bottom of the supers, but Like the King got the much better trip, and Sainthood got squeezed in the stretch. And Sainthood's only had 3 races, has much more room to improve. Probably won't be using much of either, but no chance for Like the King for me.
All right. As a Brooklyn native, the 3 horse, my sentimental pick, plus he gets Umberto. How beautiful would that be if Rispoli actually won this Derby? And any shot, Christina?
Well, I'll give the horse some credit. He had his momentum completely stopped in the woods, so he might be a little better than that last prep shows us. And overall, he does have 3 wins, but I'm glad Umberto has a mount. I completely agree. I think he's going to give this horse a beautiful trip because he kind of has something to prove out there. But I don't like the idea of, okay, we got in, let's just go run in the Derby kind of last second. It doesn't really feel like they were really pointing to this race until he got moved up in the points.
Do you make a case, Scott, or can you make a case here that, look, that was only his first start of the year. Maybe that is a sign of confidence that they're willing to just kind of be like, all right, load up in the van, let's go, let's do this. I mean, what do you make of it?
I mean, you took 5th in the race that you're using the prep for the Derby and then you just kind of happen to get in. I mean, it's not a plan that I want to get behind, but and now we're just going to bring in another jockey because he was available. I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts. I feel like this is it would be a cool story, but it will ruin my day.
All right. We've talked about a little bit of a hesitancy here to bet on deep closers. Keep me in mind, the 4 horse is one who, I actually thought coming out of the Bluegrass Stakes probably ran a sneaky, decent race there, I will say, was up against it with not much pace. We've seen him when he gets a setup, he can run a decent race. He hasn't looked as good this year. Christina, can you make a case for him?
I can't. I mean, you just don't see that profile of horses that have 2 poor races coming into the Derby. He's won once, and to be fair to him, that was at Churchill Downs, and it was against stakes competition, but his recent form is too bad for me to get behind. And I'm confused about what they want, because they say they want him to drop back and make one run, yet he was the bullet best of 108. I think he's confused. Like, he's got to be confused too.
Scott, I take it from your facial expression that we don't need your opinion on this one. We can move on.
I mean, Mike Maloney is a professional handicapper that did an interview on In the Money and suggested this horse is being overlooked for the 3rd and 4th, 5th spots of the Super High 5. So I have a lot of respect for him. I mean, anybody who can make money playing this game professionally, I'm not gonna ignore that. But I mean, for me personally, I can't see the horse anywhere near the win column. So
it's a good bit of info. No, and that's good to know. Look, I always perk up when I hear handicappers that I respect say a horse that I had nowhere on my radar has a chance to do anything. So that's a good bit of info. Let's move on. The 5 Sainthood, Scott already weighed in. Christina, do you like Sainthood at all?
I do. I like him better than Like the King coming out of that race. I thought even amidst all the trouble, he really re-rallied. He showed some kind of tenacity. And I love Corey Lanery. I think he gives some of the best rides there at Churchill Downs, saves a ton of ground. He's a horse that I could see hitting the board underneath, 4th, 5th, perhaps.
Okay. The 6 Horse Obesos. This is one that, again, watching replays, I didn't think I was going to like this horse at all, but I did like what I saw in Louisiana Derby. I thought he took a major step forward. He was the only horse really to gain ground on the top 2, Hot Rod Charlie and Midnight Bourbon. And he did have to navigate through a lot of traffic, which you would have to do in the Derby if you're coming from off the pace. To me, I think Obesos is a viable long shot to use underneath. only concern here is a very, I mean, obviously a Derby inexperienced jockey, but one of the youngest jockeys in the races, and doesn't have much big time experience. Marcelino Pedroza. Christina, Scott, any interest in this horse? You could say no. You won't hurt my feelings.
No, I think the problem I have with him is he kind of runs with his head sideways all the time. And he's looking around for something to do. I think he's going to be a hard horse to maneuver in a 20-horse field. And then you find that with the inexperienced jockey. He ran a good number last out. I'll love that. He looks like he's probably improving, but I'm not sure that they're the right combination for each other in this circumstance.
All right. The 7, Mandaloon. Really disappointing effort in that Louisiana Derby. Scott, have you just a head scratcher? Do you think, this horse can bounce back? Where do you land on Mandaloon?
I certainly don't know. It sounds like from every interview I've heard that they have no idea what happened, but the horse is, if you draw a line through that race, the horse looks kind of appealing, and you get all those Brad Cox stats. I mean, you get, there's plenty of talent there, and you get the Cox Giroux combo, and there's been a lot of it's been one of the buzz horses out there as far as the work that I've seen. I haven't been out there like Christina. I mean, she's one up on us all by just being there in person and doing the cooking herself. So I'd like to hear her take on it. But some of the works and the reports that I've heard have been pretty good. I'm usually very against, and I've been caught many times on betting a horse, too strongly that just bombed in the prep before the Derby. I hate that. But for all the reasons we said before, I mean, in a field that I don't think is all that talented, I'm not going to just totally dismiss the horse. Still, will be on some of my tickets.
Yeah, Christina, any feeling one way or another on this one?
I'll use him for sure because I think he looks phenomenal out there. I love the way he's training, but I agree with what Scott's saying. There wasn't really an excuse offered at all ever for that race in the Louisiana Derby. I mean, and I watched the replay a couple times trying to find it myself. So he is a head scratcher, but I think you have to use him a little bit defensively on some of your tickets.
All right, we've talked quite a bit about Medina Spirit, so we can move past that one. We go to number 9, Hot Rod Charlie. Christina, pick back up on Hot Rod Charlie, winner of the Louisiana Derby.
I think he's going to get a lot of attention. I think he's going to take a lot of money. What I like most about him is that he kind of makes his own trip. And I think you find a lot of these sort of gritty types of horses that can win the Derby. He can be on the lead, he can stalk, he can come from off of it. And it goes a long way to say that 2-year-old form really held up. It's not as if he came out of nowhere. He was second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile to Essential Quality last year, and he's been one of the constants so far this season. I think he's going to maybe 3rd or 4th choice. I know a lot of people that like him on top.
There are a lot of really interesting human interest stories tied to Hot Rod Charlie. If you haven't seen it, Google Hot Rod Charlie. All those stories will come up. Scott, from a straight handicapping betting perspective, are you using this one?
I am. I think there's a lot of grit to this horse. I feel like it's the type that it could easily get brave and find himself in front, turning for home. I mean, they've tried and they went closer to the pace. It wasn't a crazy fast pace, but at a mile and 3/16 in that, I mean, the splits were solid enough. Beat a very consistent type that we talked about earlier, and we'll talk about next in Midnight Bourbon. It's a gritty type. I feel like that horse will be around. I also think that the horse is going to be overbet. I've heard so many people liking this horse, and then they talk about the cheer when the horse drew the 9, and then someone, I guess Doug told someone that they would have cheered no matter what post they drew, so it had nothing to do with the 9. And I don't know what to make of all that, but I know that out of the short list of horses I think can win this race, I think Hot Rod Charlie's on it, and I wouldn't be shocked if Hot Rod Charlie is the 3rd choice, but we'll see how much the buzz holds up and how much Known Agenda gets punished for being in the 1 hole.
I think he will be. I think the price does drift up on Known Agenda is my sense of it. But we'll see. Scott, Christina already said, she thought maybe with Mike Smith up, Midnight Bourbon could get aggressive out of the gate. What do you think? Midnight Bourbon, any chance to hang around, whatever the trip might be?
As long as they tell him he has to be aggressive. I love Mike Smith. I mean, he won the last race for me in that NHC. I'll love him forever for that. I loved him in the Triple Crown runs he's had, and he's been incredible. He's my favorite all-time jockey, but he way too many times decides these days that he can turn this horse into a stone cold closer and just finish better than everyone. And, and he always references Zenyatta for the reason he does that. I'm like, I mean, this horse needs to be forward, and that's the biggest weapon for this horse is to be forward. So if they do that, I mean, this horse is super consistent. I mean, super high five for sure for me. I'll be keying Midnight Bourbon all over the place along with Hot Rod Charlie and a few others just because of how gritty and consistent they are. And I don't think the distance will be any problem. So it's interesting. I won't be using on the win a ton, but I mean, that again, it wouldn't surprise me.
It sounds like some of your love for Mikey is waning, but I don't know.
He's just, that Omaha Beach ride still gets me.
Christina also told us she liked Dynamic One, so I'll let you weigh in real quick on Dynamic One. What do you think? Any using him in exotics at all or anything?
Here, Scott.
I know you like him. I was going to see if Scott liked him.
Heard some good things about the workouts. I can't say that overly well versed in this. I mean, it's go from maiden to the wood, makes a decent run. I mean, we'll see. I mean, that wood just, fell apart. And two Pletcher horses that just absurd odds for Pletcher horses finish 1-2. I don't know what to make of that.
Scott's not a big fan of the wood. We
not at all, but the horse is improving, and I mean, you have a Hall of Fame trainer who's done amazing things in this race. I mean, I much prefer Dynamic One to the other Todd horse. So,
all right. Christina, if you have any other thoughts on Dynamic One, let us know, and then take us into the 12 horse Helium.
Yeah, no, I think that we covered it. I think Dynamic One could get a piece of it. And I think Pletcher has some kind of quiet confidence in him. Helium, he's undefeated. He's 3 for 3. I think he'll take some money because people, the casual bettor likes the undefeated record and they gravitate towards that. But just the Tampa to Kentucky path is really difficult to be successful. It's too far back for me, and didn't quite see enough from him or Hidden Stash just to his outside. Really, those two kind of coming out of that race to think that they could jump up and win it.
Mark Cassie, again, could read into trainers' language and the way they frame things. He has said that he thought that effort by Helium was one of the most impressive things he's ever seen. Mark Cassie said that. And it's not just that he won and held off Hidden Stash, who's, like the ultimate, hanger. I'm not putting much stock in that, but the way he was under a drive, 5 and 6 wide all the way around, you don't really see horses win like that often. I didn't, and I'll say that, but I was surprised to hear him to say that was one of the most impressive things he's ever seen. Scott, was that one of the most impressive things you've ever seen?
No, it wasn't. And this, as Christina said, you're going to race twice in synthetic and you're going to come in a prep race 2 months for the Derby and you just don't have any plan after that. We got in, we'll go if we feel like it. See what happens, see what we're doing that day. It just that's what it feels like to me. I don't know why there wasn't more of an aggressive plan there if you thought this horse had a legit shot. There's always hidden factors I don't know about.
He did, Scott. He did explain his logic. He said, if this horse can run that well off of a 3-month break, imagine how good he'll run off this 2-month break.
Simple math.
It's Mark Cassie. He knows his stuff. So, I don't know. I in all seriousness, I don't know. I feel like this horse is a total wild card. But if you're seriously handicapping this race, you've got to draw a line somewhere, and you probably need to accept the fact that if you get beat by Helium, you got beat by Helium.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely.
Hidden Stash. I've already kind of spoken ill of him. It would be cool to see Victoria Oliver become the first female trainer to win a Triple Crown race. But I think this horse is up against it. Christina?
Yeah, I think so too. He just hasn't quite done enough, and he hasn't won this year at all. You don't see horses that do that. He'd be a huge surprise for me.
Okay. Scott, anything to add?
Yeah, just raced enough that we know what we're getting there, and just the figures are light. If the Tampa Bay Derby, it turns out that race was, just way better than we think it was. And I don't know, I've lost on random things happening and this horse takes fourth or fifth. But I mean, if this horse wins, then it's gonna be a rough day for me.
I was going to say, if you're watching this, you could play the Saver Hidden Stash Helium Exacta and fade us. But I will also say, like, without trying to sound the least bit arrogant, that we've had some pretty good luck with this show. Like when we give you horses, we're putting in the time and the effort and we're putting in the work. And I can't think of too many occasions where we've gotten beaten by a horse who was totally off our radar. So I'm fairly confident moving past these two horses. Let's skip past the next two as well, Essential Quality and Rock Your World. We've spoken about both of them. Let's jump to number 16, King Fury, big winner over the off track in the Lexington. Scott, any interest in this horse? Expecting the track to come up dry and the weather to be nice on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, you prepped the only time this year at the Lexington. I mean, ran a good race, but you just don't have the running style. You did it in the slop. It's just, I don't have any interest, but unless somebody can tell me something convincing to use the horse underneath, maybe, as to why this shook out. I didn't read any of the stories in this horse as to why that was the way this all went down. He didn't race till April. He ran the Lexington. That's it for the year. Didn't pay too much attention. The horse was never really on my radar, so maybe I'm missing something. I mean, the horse was super expensive and 950,000, I believe. Meant to be a great horse, but I mean, there's nothing that I've seen so far that makes me want to bet this horse.
Yeah, I don't know why he missed so much time this year. I didn't see anything about that, but I will say, Kenny McPeak never gets horses of this price tag. He does a lot with far cheaper horses. And I think this horse really likes Churchill. I think you can forgive him for the Kentucky Jockey Club because he went to the sidelines for so long after that. But his other two races were victories here at Churchill in the street sense. He beat Superstock back in their 2-year-old season. I think there is a case to be made for him to hit the board. I don't think it was just about the sloppy track last time out. I'm watching him train. He loves it there. And I think he might be that kind of peaking at the right time horse. I don't know if his best is good enough to win or not, but I think he is going to run his best, and maybe his best is good enough to hit the board.
All right, that sounds like a little bit of an endorsement from Christina on King Fury. So that's an interesting tidbit there. Moving on to Highly Motivated. I made the case for Highly Motivated. I guess he's one of these horses that you either love or hate. Christina?
I've gone back and forth on Highly Motivated a couple times this week, actually. For a minute, he was going to be my selection, and then I just kind of came back to that opinion that the Bluegrass was a bit too much. But I will say that I love the way Chad Brown has managed him. And I think to your point about his confidence, I think he's always known that this was a very special horse. And I think, he took him over to Keeneland for the Nyquist because he wanted to take him back to the Bluegrass to try and qualify for the Derby. I think he was really plotting this path for a long time to get the best out of him at this stage. All
right, Scott, where do you stand on this one?
So my favorite number, and I obsess about the number, is 17. So it's a tough one for me. My heart was completely broken. I thought the 17 was finally breaking through last year with Tis the Law at 3-5, and that just, man. So I'm torn. It looked like that was the time for Highly Motivated. And if you didn't win that race with that setup, a little bit loose on the lead, and kind of backing up a little bit at the end, the gallop out, like you said, was fine. And Chad can get them third off the layoff. I mean, I'm very torn. I'm going to use defensively, because it's has the ability to be close enough to the pace, which is all I'm really interested in this race, is all the horses, kind of like rifling through all the horses that I can picture being on or near the lead, because I don't want to deal with the traffic. And because of the stat that I used earlier, with the early pressers, but I know that they don't want to be that close to the lead. So I'm a little bit concerned about where you're going to end up from the 17 hole with how they do it. And then you mentioned that before, so I will use defensively. Not my favorite horse in the race.
Yeah, no, similar concern with how much ground this horse might lose. And between the two that I mentioned, Highly Motivated, Medina Spirit, if you're the kind of bettor that just wants bang for your buck, You'll probably get a lot more excitement at a minimum with Medina Spirit. You know, you'll be on or near the lead for a good portion of the race. So if that's all you want, and you know, whatever, maybe Medina Spirit's the way to go between the two that I mentioned earlier. The 18 horse Super Stock, I think a similar running style here. I mean, has run his best when he's been able to save ground. Again, drawn wide. I thought of all the horses that are drawn wide. I thought that might hurt him as well. Christina, Super Stock.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, that trip that he had in the Arkansas Derby is probably his best case scenario as far as a trip goes, just kind of pressing. But I don't think he's really as fast as some of the others that are in here now that we've got the whole group together. But I think Asmussen, he will use stakes races as preps. And I learned that kind of the hard way, because you end up with this horse at 12-1 in the Arkansas Derby. He used the Rebel as a prep. And he, I think, is bringing this horse in to maybe run his best number come this weekend. And it's a great story with his parents owning the horse, his son winning his first stakes race on the horse. It's definitely one of the sentimental stories, but I think he's a little too workmanlike for me. I don't know that he's going to have kind of the star power of a Rock Your World, or, you know, the others that are going to take a lot of money in here.
Super Stock.
Don't think it's out of the question to hit the board, and that's good information. The last race was used as a prep. I didn't see that, but had a really good setup sitting behind a decently hot pace, and we'll see what they get. I mean, you have to navigate a trip from the 18, but I mean, the last race stayed close enough to that pace where it's like, I don't think the horse will be out of touch, and it's going to have his main rider up, Ricardo. I mean, just like we talked before, I mean, you're going to get an absurd price on Asmussen, Ricardo, Santana's like combinations this weekend. So if that's what you like, and that double would pay quite a bit. So, I mean, I'll probably use the horse underneath in tries and supers.
So a horse that I'm totally, not sure what to expect from. We've only seen him 3 times. Soup and Sandwich through the 19 on debut was up with a pretty hot pace, and then kind of changed tactics, and then came back in the Florida Derby and was up with the pace and actually hung in really nicely there. I'm kind of torn on this one a little bit. I guess if you like Known Agenda, you might like him a little bit, Christina.
I don't like him.
Nope.
And you like Known Agenda, and I realized that they were very close to each other. But for me, there's a couple things working against Soup and Sandwich. He took a pretty big step forward in his speed figures in that last race, and I really do believe in form patterns and regressions. I think he bounces off that race. I think that was just too much of a step forward for him last time to be able to continue on that trajectory. And the second thing is he's out of a Tappet mare, and those horses can have a little bit of a reputation for being difficult to manage. In there, and I've watched him run a couple of times. He has a lot of maturing to do, and I think in front of a crowd and with 20 horses and all the kind of pomp and circumstance of a Kentucky Derby, I'm not sure he's mentally ready for this kind of a test.
I have those same concerns after seeing some of the Twitter videos of Midnight Bourbon this week. So we'll see if he can handle the action on Saturday. Soup and Sandwich, Scott.
So now that you've given me the inside info on Mark Cassidy, is this just a rabbit for helium?
Oh, it could be. It could be.
I mean, has this been the plan the whole way, and your helium's going to be 150-1, and he's just gonna retire? It
could be. You've connected the dots here.
I mean, you have to dead send from out there from the 19, I think. I mean, otherwise the horse is going to be a speed horse shuffled way out. We'll see. That usually doesn't go well because I just don't think, I don't think the Florida Derby was that spectacular to feel like not winning that race was acceptable. And like Christina said, it was such a big jump that you could see regression. I mean, there just seems to be a lot of things working against the horse. But it's another one with only 3 races. So you don't always know what you're going to get in that situation. There's room to improve. I just don't know if it'll be this race.
All right. Scott, the last horse in the field, I'm not even asking you about because we've gotten pretty clear what your opinion is on the Wood Memorial. Christina, Bourbonic, Kendrick Carmouche, obviously, just in terms of people we're rooting for. Remember, we mentioned Umberto Kendrick in his first Derby, just, oozing just optimism and good vibes at all times. Would love to see him win, but Bourbonic, any realistic shot?
Yeah, I would love to see Kendrick Carmouche win the Derby. I just love any interview that he's a part of, anything that he's in because he's such a great guy. And you can tell he does have all that optimism and loves horses. He's a real horseman. And he wanted to ride this horse. He was really clear that Bourbonic was the one that he wanted to be aboard in the Wood Memorial. He has a lot of faith in him. I think the outside draw is tough. I think there's going to be a lot of horses. He's going to get shuffled back pretty far. And I prefer Dynamic One out of the two of them. I think Dynamic One, as wide as he was in the Wood, actually ran the better race, even though he finished second.
I'll say this about Bourbonic, and then we'll move on. Before the Wood Memorial, I actually thought that Bourbonic had a shot at winning, not winning, but running a good race, because I watched the prior race, which I would encourage you to do. Watch that race at Parks over the off track, the race prior, and then look at the charts for that day. Look at all the races that day. I think it was something like 8 out of 10 races that day were won by horses who finished first, or the front runner finished second, beaten by like less than a length or two. Bourbonic made the biggest move all day long from off the pace to finish second in that race right there to Market Maven, who also was in the Wood Memorial. That move was impressive. To follow that up with the way he finished in the Wood Memorial, I don't think it was a total fluke. I'm not sure, how many tickets I'm going to use this horse on. I don't think he can win again. But if you told me that he finishes second in the Derby, I'd be like, all right, well, that's not exactly where I thought he'd finish, but I'm not entirely floored by it either. So, okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We are short on time. I'm looking at the clock. We were supposed to each give you a bonus pick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick bonus pick without getting into any of my analysis. I'm just going to kind of tell you who I like in the race and let Scott handle analysis for the race, because we came up with the same race. It's the Turf Classic. It's the race before the Derby, race 11. The two horses that I landed on were Ivar and Count Again. So the 2 and the 4. I thought Ivar could potentially get to the lead and wire them. And then Count Again is one who closed incredibly well in the Kilroe Mile to almost get up, finished second to a horse that Christina is very familiar with, named Hit the Road. Yeah, Christina's like, he didn't almost get up. He was nowhere close to us. But Scott, I think you're going with a little bit of a safer bet here. The horse who's got all the recent form.
Yeah, and because we're short on time, I won't, dive too far into this. But I mean, I read Ortiz. There's an angle on him, and he, for whatever reason, I mean, he's good at everything, but he wins at about 30% at this distance on the turf. And he's been pairing up with Todd Moore, and they've been doing surprisingly good things on the turf. Even for Todd, it seems like Todd's been doing better on the turf. And I just think this horse, every time you watch the replays of this horse, the horse can close. The horse has every right to get better. I don't think he loved the soft ground and still found a way to win last time. Won the Pegasus turf. I think every distance is no problem, whereas there are a lot of horses in here where I'm not sure if they're 2-turn horses. There's a lot of mile horses in here that seem to excel better at that distance. I just think you get a 4-year-old who's moving in the right direction, and I'm excited to see what this horse can do. Just every time the horse finds a way out, the horse closes like crazy, and I think should be right in it unless someone gets really loose, like a Smooth Like Straight or a Chad horse that's coming off the bench, kind of just crushes it. There's West Coast horses I like, but I learned a long time ago from a lot of good handicappers to always give preference to the East Coast turf horses, especially when you're racing on the East Coast. And that's just kind of where I'm at with Colonel Liam. I'm a big fan of the horse and hoping he can get it done.
Heavy eye roll from Christina there.
I think it's fair. They come out and beat us pretty often when they come to the West Coast. So I think you have to have a pretty good West Coast turf horse if you're going to ship and win.
All right. Christina, you do have one last play for us. It's the 9th race, the American Turf. What do you like?
It's the 9th race, the American Turf, the race that we thought Rock Your World was going to run in and win this year before he ran the Insanity Derby. This is a really good race. There's a lot of really nice horses in here. Scarlet Sky is a nice horse. Annex is a nice horse. But I actually think the 2 Win From Within might be able to shake loose in here. We don't have to watch the race right now, but I'll just tell everybody at home, if you have the time to go back and watch the Columbia and watch the whole thing, I mean, this horse won so easily, ears flicking back and forth the whole way around there, pulled clear by 4 lengths. The race 2 back where he broke his maiden at Gulfstream, that ended up being a key race. I think there are about 4 next out winners coming out of that one. And then just Luis Saez, I think a lot of people have noticing just how good things are going for him in the last year. Kieran McLaughlin picked him up. He's at 23% in stakes races. I think there's some other speed in here, but he was doing it so easily last time out that I think you're good every bit of that price at 8-1, and that Win From Within might be able to take him gate to wire in the American turf.
All right, fun betting race, stacked betting cards both days, Friday, Saturday, Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby. As a reminder, you go to equibase.com/offers for 3 special promotions for this weekend. New customers, you can get Stats Race Lens and everything we've just shown you for $1 using promo code SRLM1E. And also, even if you've got a Race Lens account, if you've had one before, come back in. There are other promotions there. Just go to equibase.com/offer. So check that out. For now, I'm Dan Tordjman with America's Best Racing. For Scott Coles and for Christina Blacker, we wish you all the luck this weekend, Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby. We'll see you next time.